and welcome back to the NCMU podcast, where we are dedicated to raising up the next generation of nerd culture, missionaries, and ministers. And today, I am joined by my new friend, Gwen. Gwen, welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, Gwen, you work with a group called Jesus Otaku, and we're going to, I'm going to learn what that means. I learned a little bit previously, but I'm going to learn more. And every one of the interviews that I've done, I have felt naturally more equipped to step into it because I nerded out about the same things, and we don't. But that's so cool. We're gonna get to know that. Gwen, tell us a little bit about yourself. Help us to get to know you a little bit, and then we'll talk about Jesus Otaku.
Okay. Oh gosh, it's like the interview questions. But tell us a little more about yourself.
Yeah, we just let us get to know you a little bit.
Okay. I am born and raised in California, Bay Area.
Okay.
Work in nonprofit sector, working with volunteers a lot. So a little bit about me.
Yeah.
My first anime was Sailor Moon when I was in kindergarten. But the first anime that I watched that I knew was anime was in junior high with Yu Yu Hakusho.
Okay, so I watched Sailor Moon. I'm not too I'm secure enough in my manhood to admit I watched some Sailor Moon back in the day. Granted, just on cable, just at my grandma's house, because we didn't have cable growing up in my house. But I wouldn't have even considered Sailor Moon to be anime.
Oh, yeah. It wasn't really brought into awareness later, I think, because it was just put there along with all the other kids' shows, most likely.
Yeah, I wouldn't have even... So I will be curious to learn a little bit more about, what the boundaries of anime is. But you're on the show today because you're involved with an organization, and pronounce it correctly for me so that I don't mispronounce it.
So our group is called Jesus Otaku.
Jesus Otaku. Tell me a little bit about what that means, and then tell me a little bit about what you guys do.
Okay. So otaku means, is a word in Japanese, which means fanatic, or someone who's an extreme fan of something. And we've chosen to reclaim that word. Is often referred to anime fans. So reclaiming that word for Jesus Otaku could mean Jesus freak or Jesus fan plus anime fan. So there's that fun play on words. Okay.
Yeah, the play on what people would typically call in America Jesus freak. Like there was a time when that was also something that was pretty derogatory. There was a short season in the 2000s that it was reclaimed. I'm showing my age now.
Yeah, I remember that time.
I'm showing my age a little bit here. Yeah. Okay, so tell me a little bit about what does that mean and what do you guys do? Because for me, coming from a gaming mindset, coming from a tabletoping mindset, I can imagine, playing with some friends and having a conversation about faith while we're playing games together, or engaging in deep relationships around the D&D table. Help me understand how you guys see faith integrated into or having impact on people who love anime.
Yeah. So Jesus Otaku is an anime outreach ministry, and I like to think of it as we want to help people recognize that God can reach you through anime as well. And God can use anime to actually show you spiritual truths too. Just like God might use a sermon or songs or other things. And we're trying to encourage people to integrate that in their lives. But so that's for the Christians. And then for the people who are non-believers, we believe that we know that anime fans, when they find each other, they're okay, I trust you, you're family.
Yes.
We both went through I'm showing my age too. It wasn't popular to be an anime fan a long time ago. So if you found each other, you're okay, cool. We can look out for each other.
I think even to a certain extent now, I'm in a very rural, very rural. We live in a town of 1,200 people. So we're pretty out there. I would say even here, that is still when anime fans find each other. I was a youth pastor for 6 years, and we kind of became a safe haven for a lot of the kids in the community who were anime fans, because we would play Magic the Gathering and stuff at the church, and I was a nerd, and so that really did impact some of the things that we did as a youth ministry. And I remember, I wasn't into it, but I remember when we started getting a group of kids that were anime fans, and they flocked together. Like they really clung to one another. And is that common across the board, or is that almost like a survival thing when it comes to, is it just because you relate to one another so much easier and so much more deeply, or is it because of people really not being, I don't know, tolerant or understanding of what you enjoy? And when you find other people that do, you need that sense of family and connection.
I think there's a little bit of both. There's definitely certain elements of anime that is just incredibly awkward to have to try to explain to someone else. Just some of the weird story elements that are common tropes and that sort of thing. And there's a lot of assumptions about anime. So some people might only know anime through hentai, so Japanese, right? The Japanese cartoon. So it's easy to feel like, well, if I say I like anime, someone might judge me and think it's this. So some of it's that, some of it's just being able to be like, hey, I like this weird show. And then the person's saying, oh, wow, I relate to you, right, for anime. So I think there's a bit of both, just having that unique experience that other people might not understand. And if someone else gets you, then it feels this big sense of relief that you can finally share something you love with another person who gets it.
Yeah. I think sometimes the bad rap that anime gets can frequently be that it, it's a cartoon, yada, yada, yada. And as someone who loves cartoons, I don't have any problem with that. What I've actually, for me, what I have found, and I wouldn't say this, it's not inaccessible to me. I think that anime there's a barrier to entry with anime, I think, in the fact that these are not just cartoons. Like anime's core functionality is that it's telling really intentional and really powerful stories. And you get, like, people get really invested in those characters and in those stories, in those narratives. They connect with them deeply. They relate to them deeply. And then, like just the same as, if I'm in a crowded space and I see someone with a specific t-shirt on that identifies them not just as like a Marvel Cinematic Universe fan, but a genuine comic book fan, we'll make eye contact and it's like, okay, we're brothers, or we're brother and sister. Like, I get you. And I feel like that is a very similar thing. Like for anime fans, it's common for them to sort of fly the anime flag to let other people know, like, hey, we can relate.
Definitely. It's a lot of that. I realized I failed to tell you even our mission statement for Jesus Otaku. Okay, well, let's circle back to it. Yeah, no, I want that too. So let's dig into that. What is your mission statement? And let's use that to help us get a larger grasp on exactly what you're doing. Great. So our mission is to, I have this memorized, I know it, is to creatively model the love of Christ by being a bridge for the church and the otaku. The church and the anime community. Yeah. Okay, that's awesome. So let me ask you how you practically do that in your context. What does that look like? Like, let's say, Gwen, on a week when, because you said you have a job, you're working in the nonprofit. So this is something that you're doing as a side thing, as a passion, right? This is a ministry that you're involved in, but you're also a director, right? Like a director of a region for the ministry. Yes. So I'm the Northern California director. Okay. So unpack that for me. What does it look like to be the Northern California director? And what is like an average week or an average month in this ministry look like? So I'll back up just a little bit to maybe explain why this, I feel, is so compelling a ministry. And that is, I like to tell churches that the population of people who really like anime tend to be the ages of like high school to early mid-20s. And this is a bit dated, but it is considered part of the lost generation, the generations that no longer go to church. Yep. A lot of them tend to struggle with depression and loneliness. A lot of them also are part of the LGBT community. So, and a lot of them have had bad experiences with church. They would never go to church if someone invited them.
Yep.
And that's why we believe that we, the church, have to go to them in their spaces at anime conventions.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I love that. And just like from personal experience, I had teenagers in my youth ministry who I loved deeply and were very connected to, who are kind of in the anime group that frequented our church. And almost the moment that they graduated high school, they were gone. Like, the church wasn't for them. And the youth ministry created a safe place for them to connect with their friends. And even though a lot of us as leaders and volunteers weren't really into anime, we gave them a place to talk about what it was that they loved. And I knew that the moment they stepped into church, that this was just an environment that was screaming to them, what you love doesn't matter. What you love is confusing. What you love is threatening. And what you care about and what you love, what you enjoy isn't acceptable here. And our church never even needed, it's not like we had you can't watch anime sermon. You know, it wasn't preached, it wasn't said, but it was communicated in the way that we dressed, in the way that we held ourselves, and in everything, that this was just not an environment for them. And so I love that heart of being like, we're going to go to where you are. Yeah, it's absolutely that. So we do that by usually going to anime conventions. We'll have a booth, usually at in the vendor hall. And we actually took a lot of inspiration from Game Church. We consider them our uncles. So we would pass, we'll have a big sign that says, "You are loved just as you are." And we make sure to have that statement out there because a lot of people were told they had to change first, then we'll accept you. Change first, then we'll love you. But we believe that God loved us first before we did anything. So we make sure that that part of the gospel is out there first because a lot of people haven't heard that, or that's not the message they got when they were going to church a long time ago. So we have that up at the front. This is "You're loved just as you are." And by the way, this booth is mostly black and white because everything else at an anime convention is really colorful and trying to get your attention. And we created stuff intentionally for your eyes to rest on. And at our booth, we passed out these art books. I have one here with me. So it's like we call them art books. They're a lot like a devotional. And it has a message in each day. One says like, "You are beautiful," and it has a Bible verse, and then a little message that unpacks it. "You are chosen, you are delightful, you're extraordinary." And it basically says, I love the beginning. It says, "Before we can speak for ourselves, others speak for us. We're put into boxes and have labels placed upon us." But what if we stopped from getting attacked with those labels and turned to hear what the creator, your creator, said about you? So it's about replacing the labels and the things that have been placed on you. And I would imagine that somebody from the anime community, and like you said, a lot of people inside that community identify deeply with anime, with the tropes and with the stories, also dealing with depression, also dealing with, and it's certainly not universally, right? Certainly not universally. But I would say in my experience engaging with people in the anime community in a very similar way to the gaming community, I lead an online church for gamers. We have a large number of people who deal with depression, anxiety, and different mental health issues. That's very common for our church family. And so, you know, we're in that every day. And because of that, people, they collect a lot of titles, a lot of names, a lot of things. So, so primarily what you guys do is you go into conventions that are focused around anime, that people, you know, that all of anime people are coming to, just go there to love on people and meet them where they are.
Yeah. So we'll pass out art books. We'll offer activities. So people can like maybe write a wish and put it on our tree. We'll pass out free stickers that says "You are loved just as you are" on it. And we'll invite people to join us on our Discord or connect with us. If it's local in my area, we'll invite them to our monthly hangouts called our Cosplay Workdays. And we tell them, you can work on cosplay if you want to, right? We can help you work on a costume, or you can just hang out with us. Either way. So our goal is to like connect with people and just build those friendships. One of the ways that we show love sometimes is by having a cosplay fix-it kit. So if your cosplay is falling apart, your costume's falling apart, we'll have like safety pins for you, and we'll stitch something for you, or just tape or hot glue gun. And we also sometimes have a cell phone charging station, because sometimes people's cell phones run out of batteries, right? And they need to have it charged up. So we try to help people like with those basic needs as well.
Just meeting them where they are, serving them well, caring for them where they are. You know, one of the things that in Bubba from Love Thy Nerd does the other episodes of this podcast, and I've been on a couple of conventions with LTN now. I'll be going on one again this December. And they were new experiences for me as a board gamer. I'd never been to a con before. And so I show up for this con and I'm like, this is the wildest thing that I have ever experienced. And it was just wild. It was really wild. But watching LTN meet people where they are in the points of passion that they have and love them at that place, teach them a board game, you know, just hang out with them. I've been able to have some incredible conversations with people because of just getting out of the walls of the church and just meeting people where they are. And you're so right about the lost generation. You know, I think that every pastor that I talk to, when I talk to them about some of what we're doing, and we just talk to them about numbers in general, the numbers are staggering. I mean, they are staggering. And for me, and I'm sure it's similar like this for you when you walk into a convention. For me, when I would walk into a convention with LTN, I look around and I'm like, these are thousands and thousands of people that the church doesn't even know exists. Like, they literally don't even know these people exist. They don't know anything about their world, the church at large. They're so culturally divorced from it, so culturally separated from it. And I love your heart for people who would never go to church. We started Lux for people who would rather go to hell than go to church. And so I love that so much. So Gwen, let me ask you this. What made you feel the burden, the calling on your heart? If you're an anime lover, you could have just gone to the convention. But instead, you're serving people and loving people and stepping into this as a ministry. Your time, energy, resources are being sacrificed to be a part of this. So what made you feel called into this, and how did you determine that God was moving you in this way?
Yeah. So, my gosh, probably back in, let's see, it's like 2013 or so, I was done with college, and I was at a point in my life where I wanted to invite God into other areas of my life. I wanted my faith to grow, and I told God, I'm ready to invite you into other areas of my life beyond just church. I want to really integrate it. And let me think, what's the wildest thing I can invite God into? And I thought, anime. I can't imagine God. I don't know how on earth God would be involved, but I want to see what he does.
Yeah, I love that.
I went to my anime convention, Anime, in San Jose, with that heart. And I saw what I'd seen before, but with fresh eyes, which was a protester outside. This guy with a loudspeaker and a large sign that said, "Turn from your sin or burn in hell." And actually felt judged and condemned, even though I knew I was saved. And I saw he was targeting the people at the anime convention. He was saying, like, take off your bunny ears and face reality. And I could see there was this great animosity between the convention goers and the guy with the sign. He was trying to provoke something, and people were getting really riled up. And I asked God at the end of the day what he had to say about this. Like, am I supposed to, like, give up anime now? Is that what the message is? And I felt like God's response was to say, I love everyone here. You know, I love the people in cosplay. I even love the guy with the sign. And I thought, wow, I don't think people know that message. I don't think people know that God loves them here. And I would love to be the person to share that because I'm on the inside. Oh my God, I'm already on the inside. Like I like going to anime conventions.
This is your people. This is your tribe.
Yeah.
This is something that you already identify. You can speak their language, right? And let's just be clear, like as much as a Dungeons and Dragons player, I speak a foreign language when I'm with my buddies who play D&D. Anime has its own language as well, right? Like if I go up and ask somebody and I'd be like, hey, what's your favorite anime and what's the plot? Like they'll tell me. They'll 100% tell me. I will have no idea what's happening, but they will tell me, like, because they love it and they're so excited about it. But it's its own language, right? And like you kind of have to be like Twitch. Twitch has its own culture. You have to be raised in the culture to a certain extent, or at least you have spent time in it to understand it, genuinely value it, genuinely enjoy it, and be excited about it. You know, I would imagine that somebody who's excited about and loves anime, and you could probably tell someone who isn't excited about it from a mile away. Right? Someone who's faking it, someone who's pretending to be into it just so they can hand you a track about salvation. So you actually loving this just puts you in such a profound position to step in and love people exactly where they are genuinely. You don't have to fake it. It's not, you know, you're not getting people on your evangelistic belt. You're not, you know, getting notches.
Yeah, I find that like the closer my walk with God, the more often I'm just spending my life with God on a regular basis. It just authentically comes out in the friendships that I have. And I think especially since it's integrated with anime, it just makes it even more like seamless. It's easy for me to like connect with another anime fan and recognize like God's heart for them and saying, wow, this person's lonely. They're willing to like, they're so excited. I recognize their cosplay and they're excited to talk to me. And like, I feel God's heart for this person who feels lonely. So like, of course I'm going to talk with them more. And then, just see what God's doing in their life. And if there's an opportunity, speak into that. Or even if there's something that they're sharing that I recognize because that was part of my story before and I saw how God like spoke to that, then I share a little bit of that too. But I don't feel this pressure to suddenly like, you know, hand them the gospel track and run away, because I know that God's going to use people. Like God will use more than one person to reach somebody. And we're just one of the many people God will use along someone's path. Yep. And I have faith that's going to happen. And I think it's amazing that God is going to go out of his way to track down someone all the way at an anime convention, right? Just so they come to our booth and see that message that they're loved just as they are. I think that in itself is a miracle. And then beyond that, what else God does, I'm just patient in seeing what God uses me for. But I know some people have the panic, like we need to hand something to them right away because this might be the last chance. I'm like, God's so much bigger than that, you know? Like, and sometimes you scare people by that because they feel like they're treated like a project or something. And so instead, our goal is just to let them know that they're loved through our interactions with them. In a large anime convention, you might not talk to a single person. For someone to give you the time of day and actually take time to talk to you for like 5 minutes, especially at a large anime convention, that can make a big difference. And some people just want to talk to other anime fans, but they don't know how to go about doing it. It can be hard.
Yeah.
So I relate to all that. That used to be me. So. Sure.
Yeah, you understand all of that. So there's so much in that is so good. Like this wisdom of like, you're not the beginning or the end of anybody's spiritual story, right? Like God has been at work in their life before you engaged with them. He's going to be in their life afterwards. And if all that you get the opportunity to do is you get the opportunity to put some safety pins in a costume to pull it back together and be a moment of kindness, of compassion in somebody's life. It might be having a genuinely bad week or a bad year, and their highlight was this costume. it was getting a chance to go and be this character for this conference, and you get the opportunity to help that become more of a reality. So powerful. Well, Gwen, I have, so I am now reflecting. It's convicting for me, because I have members of our community who are really into anime. And specifically, we did a meetup in Pittsburgh during Techo, which is an anime convention in Pittsburgh, and there's several of our community members. And we have some people from the Pittsburgh area, and I'm from around the Pittsburgh area. So they did a little meetup, and I drove down. Two of them were cosplaying, and they were dressed up, and I'm coming into the city, and it was, I mean, for someone who this is your first time at, like in the proximity of an anime convention, there was some sights. I'll just put it like, there was some, like, I was like, what, where am I right now? You know, we went down and had burgers. I didn't go to the convention. They went back there. But what would you say, you know, I have these two people who are Christians who love anime. What would you say to them in terms of, like, they're just not sure what maybe let's say they're not sure what their place is. They haven't found their spot in the church. They don't feel at home, and they're not really sure if God can use the things that they love.
Wow. So much comes to mind. I think for someone who feels lost, I would say God really gets you. He speaks your language, and I think of that, I took that from perspectives, because it's their goal is to translate everything into people's heart language, which might not be just the standard language, but their specific dialect. And I believe the same for God. Like, what God sometimes has used an anime meme to speak to me. So I really believe that God really gets us to even our level of hobbies. And so I would say that God really gets you, and he would love if you invited him into that area of your life. And I like to practice, like, sometimes I'll watch an anime and pretend I'm inviting God to watch it with me and be like, hey, what do you have to say about this, God? Or, like, just show your insights. Because if you do everything with God, it's the same as praying. It's like, people think of it as like, oh, why are you playing video games? You should be doing something better with your time, like praying or reading your Bible. But if you're doing everything meditative, like just prayerfully with God, it's all good. So I would say invite God in. And, our goal as Christians is to continually be surrendering things up to God, a continually surrendered life, making sure God remains at the number one.
Yeah.
And when you invite God into your other areas of your life, he might stir things up, right? He might cause a ruckus, and don't be afraid, because I did that in my life, and I saw God said, this thing, we both know it's sinful, but I know deep down why. I know deep down that you had a desire that wasn't fulfilled. So you tried to fulfill it with anime in this particular way that we know isn't good for you. But I know why, because you're running away. Or I know why, because you really wanted to be loved in this deep way. And yeah, we use anime in the simple way, but I'm going to show you how I can address it fully in God's loving way. So when you invite God in, he's going to mess things up for you. But it's so great because he knows you so deeply.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that, Gwen. Yeah, inviting God into it, and then also just seeing what he does on the other side of that, Yeah. Man, when we give God permission, one of the prayers that we uttered when we started Lux, I just said, God, would you just redeem my love for gaming? Would you take it and do something with it? And Lux Digital Church is a product of that simple but profound prayer. Moments before I started recording the first episodes of a podcast that would eventually build a launch team for our church. And so sometimes we think surrendering is just giving up bad things, right? It's like just giving up sinful things. Surrendering is also putting on the altar and offering the things that we love and telling God, use this in a beautifully redemptive and new way in my life. And I think, man, we can do so much more if we would take not just the things that we're ashamed of to the altar, but that we would also take the things that we love and that we're passionate about to the altar and say, God, just lead me. Man, he throws open the doors. He'll give you so many ideas. He'll open up so many opportunities. Just a beautiful, beautiful, man, love it. I just love it.
It's so beautiful. God used an anime called Norigami to show me how much like someone's heart can be transformed, because I didn't know at one point if I could really, if my heart would change from sinful ways, and if I could really have a change of heart. And then God showed me that show, and in the first arc, it happens in the first couple episodes, and I was convinced. So, anyways, regardless, it's true. Like, God can just use anime to encourage you or to convict you. Like, it's both ways, you know? And it's beautiful. I would also tell people who are believers in the anime space that you are exactly where you're supposed to be. When I meet people at anime conventions who are believers, I say, it is so good that you are in these spaces, because you carry the Holy Spirit with you. Yeah. And so you are already influencing the spaces that you are in. Of course, always be surrendering things to God. So in the season that God has you in this space, great. He's going to do so many great things. You might even be aware of it yet. Some people come to us as believers and say, I'm not doing enough. Like, I haven't shared the gospel with my friends who like anime. And I tell them, you are doing great, because your goal is to show them love, right? Just show them love, because they don't get that all the time. Like, we often tell our members, like, you know, at the booth, us having a genuinely nice conversation, just talking to people about the anime that we like, if that's it, that's great. They had a positive experience with the church.
Yep. Yes.
Like, that already says so much.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
Well, Gwen, the real question, and this is we're getting ready to end here. We're landing the plane. As a completely anime watching novice, what anime would you suggest if I was to start watching one?
Gosh.
And I know this is the hardest question. I've asked it before to people who like anime. I know it's the most painful question to ask. But if you had to suggest, if you had to like recommend one, preferably that I can get access to without having to get on Crunchyroll. But I understand if it's impossible for me to get access to some other way. But what one would you suggest? I
mean, it really depends on the genre that you like, because there's so many genres within anime. So, do you like sci-fi? Do you like? I
like classic fantasy. I like sci-fi. I'm a big Star Wars fan. So I like most things nerdy. I like most things nerdy.
I did recently watch Psychopath, and it was so good and trippy. Okay. So if you like psychological thriller, like a little bit of like, buddy, like cop shows, but psychological thriller and like all of that. You should check out Psychopath. I just finished it. If you want something feel good and wholesome, Spy Family has been great recently.
Spy Family.
Also on, yeah.
Spy Family or Psychopath? Those sound like very different shows.
Very different. So depending on your mood, right? If you want, yeah.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, as we're getting done here, can you tell us how to connect? Let's say we have someone who's listening. They're really into anime, and they're like, man, I had never thought about this before. I'd love to volunteer at a convention. I'd love to get involved in some way. How do they find what you guys are doing?
Oh my gosh, that is a good question. I'm looking it up right now. I think the best way would probably be to go on jesusotaku.com.
Okay.
That is our website. I'll spell it out for you. It's Jesus Otaku, OTAKU.com. And on there, you'll find how to find us on Discord, or even shoot us an email to get a hold of us.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Gwen, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. And I don't know, am I going to see you or somebody from Jesus Otaku at NCMS this year?
Yeah, that's me.
Okay,
I'll be there.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, well, I'm excited. I know that I met you in person there last year, kind of, supposedly, but definitely we're hanging out this year. And I'll have to bring the update on whether or not I've actually started either Spy Family or Psychopath by the time
Okay.
By the time we meet up at NCMS. And if you would like to meet Gwen and I at Nerd Culture Ministry Summit this year, listen, it's in Colorado Springs, Colorado this November. We're going to be in a freaking castle in Garden of the Gods. It's absolutely drop dead gorgeous in the Navigator's Castle, Glen Erie Castle in Colorado Springs. If you visit ncmsummit.com, you can register today. And I think if you use the code NCMFriend, you can get a discount as well on your registration. So use NCM Friend, grab a discount on your registration, and come and hang out with us at NCMS this year. You don't want to miss out on it. It's going to be great, where you have a really awesome lineup of speakers and a great grouping of workshops, and get to meet awesome people like Gwen there as well. So we hope you will come out and join us. Gwen, secretly, I'm super pumped because one of the 2 people that I told you about from my church who I met at Techo is coming to NCMS.
Oh, nice.
And I am connecting the 2 of you like right away.
That's great.
100%. So I'm super pumped about that. Anyway, guys, thank you for listening to this episode, and thank you for tuning in with us. We'll have more episodes coming out as we get closer to NCMS. Don't forget to register, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Great. Thanks so much for having me.